Ooh, good news. Interesting news. Breaking news, as a matter of fact. Hamas and Palestinian factions agree to the Gaza ceasefire framework. From our side, yes, a senior Hamas official told Dropsite News. Dropsite News is 100% the most reliable source for Hamas-related matters. We'll see what happens from the Trump side. We'll see what happens, rather, from the Israel side. Sorry, not the Trump side. I guess I said the Trump side twice. But so far, so good. If the Nobel Peace Prize is the primary motivator for Donald Trump to actually move on this, then I'll take it. So the deal in the initial framework that they designed had a lot of components that Hamas and the Palestinian resistance movement had conceded to, right? There were a lot of things that they had said yes to, right? Technocratic National Committee being in charge of the Gaza Strip and things of that nature, a full withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Strip, things like that. However, my suspicion is that there were a lot of additional things that Israel had slapped onto it, and the Americans had slapped onto it because Israel had redesigned the negotiation after Trump had a multilateral coalition of like Arab states and Middle Eastern states that, and even including like the French input alongside Saudi Arabia to put together this Gaza peace plan. But then Israel came in and added additional qualifiers to it. Trump actually also said, like, I'm going to be in charge of it. I don't know why he added his own name onto it somehow. And then they said, Tony Blair is obviously going to be a part of it as well. There were parts about this deal that not just Hamas, but like no Palestinian resistance member would ever agree to, which is complete disarmament without, complete disarmament in general. So what Hamas said that I thought was really interesting and quite smart was that they would be willing to relinquish authority and dissolve as a political force. And on top of that, they would be willing to give their weapons, hand off their arms to whichever unit the Palestinian National Committee, this technocratic committee comprised of Palestinians that are democratically assigned, right? Eventually, that they would give the weapons to them, as in Palestinians would, of course, still have sovereignty because they would still have arms. They would still have a standing military of sorts, rather than completely disarm, because complete disarmament in the face of a genocide is a laughable position. It's utter lunacy. I mean, think about it. Like, complete disarmament in the face of the Russian invasion would also be ridiculous. And this is something that I brought up when Russia was pushing for this maximalist position, right? Russia was like, "Oh, Ukraine has to engage in complete disarmament." That's fucking ridiculous. The only reason why I'm not like fully skeptical over this is because I assume that, if I personally am not the first person to trust the United States of America or trust Israel, then I suspect Hamas also is skeptical as well. So we shall see. It could be because, there is a level of genocide that where they just say enough is enough, like we can't take it anymore, we don't want more people to die, and they consider this to be the only way to end it. But as far as the genocide ending, without significant assurances that Israel will not immediately start bombing the Strip once again as soon as the prisoners of war have been released, without significant assurances, this deal is dead in the fucking water. So I don't know how this works, but mediators, the source close to the negotiator said, told the Palestinian side President Donald Trump planned to personally announce a permanent ceasefire and had offered assurances that the U.S. would not permit Israel to resume the war after retrieving the Israeli captives. Except those assurances don't really mean much. Okay, Matt Iglesias. Wait, what? How am I Matt Iglesias? I'm saying I will believe it when I see it. I have no confidence that Israel will abide by a commitment to complete cessation of hostilities. I don't trust Israel, and I do not trust the United States of America. Multiple sources from Hamas and other Palestinian factions have told Dropsite that their central concern in these negotiations was that handing over all Israeli captives would remove nearly all of their leverage if it did not include a complete Israeli withdrawal. Israel has, as a matter of policy, systematically violated its ceasefire agreements with Hamas and also with Lebanon. In entering into those negotiations, Hamas negotiators accepted they were engaging a high-stakes gamble. It is remarkable that the breaking information is coming from fucking News Nation, dude. God damn, we are in such profoundly stupid times. Oh, yeah, dude. News Nation. Okay. News Nation correspondent reports Israel and Hamas have reached an agreement on the first phase of Trump's Gaza deal. Okay. I'm glad that News Nation correspondent is reporting that Israel and Hamas have reached an agreement on the first phase of the Trump Gaza deal, citing a source with direct knowledge of the negotiations. Just in from the White House, on Friday morning, this is CBS News, President Trump will visit the Walter Reed Medical Center for a planned meeting and remarks to the troops. While there, President Trump will stop by for his routine yearly checkup. He will then return to the White House. President Trump is considering going to the Middle East shortly thereafter. This is a risk, but we trusted President Trump to be the guarantor of commitments made, said Musa Abu Marzouk, a senior Hamas leader, in an interview with Dropside on Monday. Had there been no commitment from the American president, we would never have agreed to take the risk because we do not trust Netanyahu or his extremist right-wing team in the current Israeli government. Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure they know that America is also untrustworthy. I guess for them, they just don't really have any other options, you know? I guess America is the top dog in this process, and therefore they have to abide by America's demands. Israeli officials say the agreement to end the war with Hamas will be signed Thursday, and the first group of hostages will be released on either Saturday or Sunday, according to N12. But a genocide can't just be tied off with it is what it is. No, I know. But at some point, you have to stop the hemorrhaging, right? The problem is, in the first ceasefire that they followed through on, they wouldn't allow the first phase to move on to the second phase. And the second phase was a withdrawal of troops. And it does seem to me like while everyone is like hugging and you know, slapping asses around there, and Hamas has responded to the deal. Yes, Hamas has said that they accept the deal. I am not so certain that this will end. I still believe that there will be potentially a violation from Israel. Ball is in Netanyahu's court, says Trita Parsi from the Quincy Institute. Trump wants a deal. Israel's numbers are plummeting within MAGA. It risks hurting Trump if the war and the U.S. support for it continues endlessly. Yet Netanyahu is very talented at destroying deals and getting the U.S. to blame the Palestinians. Well, he used to be much more talented at blaming the Palestinians. I don't think he's as talented at blaming the Palestinians now. And if this ceasefire deal falls apart once more, I suspect that a lot of people will, even more people will recognize that it's Israel violating it, no matter how they try to posture as Hamas being the spoiler. Israel released roughly 2,000 Palestinians it is holding captive in its prisons and military camps. The bulk of these will consist of Palestinians taken from Gaza after October 7 and will include all women and children. In Trump's original plan presented on September 29th, Israel would also free 250 Palestinians sentenced to life terms. There are ongoing negotiations over the exact number of Palestinians to be released and which, if any, of the most high-profile Palestinian resistance figures serving life sentences in Israel might be freed. Hamas has consistently demanded freedom for Marwan Barghouti, what a lot of people refer to as like the Palestinian Nelson Mandela. However, he is the single most popular Palestinian political leader whom Israel has sentenced to 5 life terms in 2004. And Marwan Barghouti is a more popular figure in the eyes of all Palestinians, both in the West Bank and in Gaza, than Hamas ever could be, for the record. So that's something to consider here, especially when, especially looking at this from the perspective of Hamas just simply wants to remain in power. Hamas simply wants to remain in power. If they wanted to, they would never demand the release of Marwan Barghouti. They would just never do that, because someone like Marwan Barghouti actually threatens their grip of power. Here's Jacob Magid, U.S. Bureau Chief, Times of Israel. Hamas is committed to securing release of Marwan Barghouti as a part of the deal to end the Gaza war. Source familiar tells Times of Israel. Hamas's leadership has relayed to interlocutors that Barghouti's fate remains absolutely central to these talks, the source says. Barghouti is currently serving a life sentence in Israeli prison for planning attacks during the Second Intifada that killed 5 civilians. He has denied the charges against him while rejecting the Israeli court's jurisdiction. If you recall, Itamar Ben-Gvir went to the prison that Marwan Barghouti is being held hostage at and actually brought him out and humiliated him, or tried to humiliate him.
מי שירצח לנו ילדים, מי שירצח לנו נשים, אנחנו נמחק אותו. אתם צריכים לדעת את זה לאורך כל ההיסטוריה.
The 60-year-old has been described as a potential successor to the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, as he has appealed among broad swaths of the Palestinian population while maintaining support for a two-state solution. Israelis, of course, say no way. We saw what happened with Sinwar. Israeli Minister Ron Dermer, who recently co-ordered the assassination of Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya with Netanyahu, now sits face-to-face at the negotiating table in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. That is a crazy pick. The guys on this side of the table, quite literally, not even a month ago, ordered the assassination of the guys on this side of the table, straight up. And what's really shocking, or what's really remarkable about this, is that the guys on that side of the table used to be different guys. Israel killed the other guys. So now these are the guys. Well, some of them were supposed to be on the table regardless, but isn't that nuts? Yeah, just remember that next time someone tries to tell you, like, Israel wanted a ceasefire. It was always Hamas that's like up the bag, up the ceasefire. It's like they have killed, they've killed the immediate relatives of the people on that side of the table too, by the way, like straight up annihilated their entire families. Hamas has also advocated for the release of Ahmed Sadat, General Secretary of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and Abdullah Barghouti, a senior commander of the Qassam Brigades, who was sentenced in 2003 to 67 life terms, the longest sentence ever imposed on a Palestinian by Israel. In addition to the 20 living Israeli captives, there are believed to be 28 deceased. Hamas officials have said that some of these bodies are buried under rubble of buildings or tunnels bombed by Israel or in areas currently under Israeli military control, and that it will take time to retrieve them. Hamas official told DropSite that an agreement will be made that would provide more time to recover the bodies of deceased Israeli captives. Now, this is one of the reasons why you logistically have to stop the bombing. This is something that I brought up in previous ceasefire arrangements where Israel was like, no, we don't want to stop the bombing, but you also have to give us the hostages. And everyone was like, you can't even do that. Like, how are we supposed to extract the fucking hostages when you are bombing everything, including the hostages? On Wednesday, Trump dispatched his son-in-law, here we go, Jared Kushner, a special envoy Steve Witkoff, to the Egyptian resort town of Sharm el-Sheikh to try and secure a deal. The Israeli delegation is headed by Ron Dermer, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Minister of Strategic Affairs. Trump said today, in anticipation of a deal, he would likely travel to the region, maybe Sunday. Trump had given Hamas and Israel a deadline of Friday to complete the negotiations. He is very eager for the Nobel Peace Prize, and therefore he wants the problem solved today or tomorrow so that the vote will be in his favor for receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, Abu Marzouk told DropSite. Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya, who survived an Israeli assassination attempt in Doha, Qatar on September 9th, literally 1 month ago, is heading Hamas's negotiation team, sitting across from the guys who ordered his assassination. The top political negotiator for the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Mohammed al-Hindi, is also directly participating in the talks, as is a representative of the left-wing Party for the Liberation of Palestine. PIJ's Saraya al-Quds force is the second largest armed resistance faction in Gaza, holds an undisclosed number of Israeli captives, along with those in the custody of Hamas's Qassam brigades. Earlier on Wednesday, Ziad al-Nakale, the Secretary General of PIJ, appeared in a rare video address. The resistance is engaged in fierce negotiating battle under what is called the Trump Plan, which also carries within it the declaration that the Palestinians should completely surrender to the enemy. Even so, the resistance has shown its willingness to negotiate on the basis that there are clauses that can be dealt with positively. First among them, the prisoner exchange clause, which could be completed in the coming few days, al-Nakale said. But we must be prepared to confront the enemy's possible attempts to turn the negotiations into an entry point for the surrender of our people and our resistance. The enemy and its allies must know that we cannot submit to their terms and dictates after all the price in sacrifices that our heroic people have paid. Hamas sources have made clear to DropSite that they believe the only path to a brokered agreement to end the genocide rests with Trump. The alternative is an indefinite continuation of the armed struggle against the U.S.-backed Israeli military. There is no other deal to be taken. Either this or return to fight with full American support coupled with Arab and Islamic passivity and letdown, said the source close to the negotiators. He said that while the deal is problematic, it contains some terms that Hamas and other Palestinian factions pushed for in their response to Trump, including deferring major issues that would alter the future of Gaza and Palestine itself. No surrender, no disarming, no mass exile, but most of all, a permanent end to the war to be announced by Trump. When Hamas offered its official response to Trump's 20-point plan last Friday, the movement's leadership took the position that it only had a mandate to enter into a deal on issues directly related to the Gaza war, but it asserted that negotiations on the bulk of Trump's proposal, which contains sweeping terms that will impact the future governance of Gaza, including demilitarizing and disarming Gaza and the deployment of foreign troops, would require the involvement of all Palestinian factions, not just Hamas. All of these issues, including Israel's demand that Hamas and other Palestinian resistance groups surrender their weapons in Gaza, will be fully demilitarized, will be deferred to future negotiations. So that is, it seems like Hamas is saying yes to the first phase, which is just the complete release of all of the prisoners of war and perhaps not just the prisoners of war, but also the killed Israelis as well. What makes you think that Trump is the actual person pushing Israel to the table? I don't trust Trump and I don't trust Israel. I do trust the resistance forces in terms of like knowing what's knowing what's best for them. And therefore, I assume that they're seeing something different in the way that this has been conducted, and that is the reason why they're conceding to the first phase without getting assurances, or maybe they did get assurances for the second phase. If we are to use the terminology that was utilized in the previous negotiations, he has finally announced it. I am very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps towards a strong, durable, everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America, and we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who work with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers. Yeah, also, Hamas did technically beat Donald Trump to the announcement by revealing this information to drop site. But, that's neither here nor there. It's going to take time until we know if this is this is conclusive. It's going to take some time. What I mean by that is where we need to see how Israel operates after the hostages are released. I could totally see Israel just taking all the hostages and then continuing its bombing, refusing to actually release the Palestinian hostages that they've taken, and then they'll just come up with a bullshit reason as to how Donald Trump actually violated this deal, and that and the United States will go along with it. And they'll say, that's right. This is what happened. I can see that being the situation. There is more information coming out of drop site only a minute ago from the Qatar side that was also involved in the deal making here. Let me pull that up really quickly. New from drop site. Qatar's foreign ministry announced that mediators reached an agreement on all the provisions and implementation mechanisms of the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal. Unlike Trump's announcement, Qatar's statement explicitly says the agreement will lead to ending the war alongside the release of Israeli and Palestinian captives and the entry of aid. The details will be announced later, spokesperson for Qatar's foreign ministry says. I mean, it seems hopeful, and we do definitely need a little bit of hope. After Donald Trump's release of the Truth Social, his Truth Social post, Hamas has released an additional statement that says, after responsible and serious negotiations conducted by the movement and the Palestinian resistance factions aiming to reach a ceasefire to stop the extermination war against our Palestinian people and the withdrawal of the occupation from the Gaza Strip, the Islamic resistance movement, Hamas, announces reaching an agreement to end the war on Gaza, the withdrawal of the occupation from it, the entry of aid and the exchange of prisoners. We call on Trump, the guarantor countries of the agreement, and various Arab, Islamic, and international parties to obligate the occupation government to fully implement the agreement's entitlements and not allow it to renege or delay the application of what has been agreed upon. We salute our great people in the Gaza Strip, Jerusalem, the West Bank, inside and outside the homeland, who recorded unprecedented stances of dignity, heroism, and honor, and confronted the fascist occupation projects targeting them and their national rights. These great sacrifices and stances that foiled the Israeli occupation's plans for subjugation and displacement. We affirm that the sacrifices of our people will not be in vain, and that we will remain committed to the pledge, and we will not abandon our people's national rights until freedom, independence, and self-determination are achieved. For those of you who always were duped early on in the aftermath of October 7, that Hamas actually has in its 1988 charter, even before they fully formed as a political movement and a political organization, that they wanted to purge all the Jews from the land of Israel. Hamas, since I believe 2017, has fully fleshed out a new charter that actually abides by a two-state solution as long as there is full-blown sovereignty for the Palestinian population. Obviously, a big part of the deal, a big part of achieving full-blown sovereignty would require having a standing military and also unlimited pathways for trade
the impact of,
in and out of the Gaza Strip.
Malnutrition that has created irreversible damage that for people who suffer from malnutrition now inside hospitals, even if food is available, they need much better care now, much more high-level intervention, medical intervention, in order to survive these conditions. And we talk about the children who might have problems when it comes to physical growth or intellectual growth. All of these things need to be addressed immediately in order to save the society. Without this, we're going to be seeing more decline over the coming months, but unless that is addressed properly.
Oh, my God. Predictably, following a lull over the last few days, a large wave of strikes now by the Israeli Air Force against Gaza City with a ceasefire agreement to go into effect roughly 10 hours at 12. Oh, how many children will Israel slaughter up until the last second? This is how Israel operates, by the way. And we know this because there have been many ceasefires that have taken place. This is, weirdly enough, this is not in an incredibly twisted way. Israel's intensifying bombing campaigns actually does mean a ceasefire is imminent, because that's how they operate. They've done this with the Iranian ceasefire. They've done this with the Lebanon ceasefire, which, by the way, they still bomb Lebanon. Like, they bombed Lebanon and killed American citizens like a couple months ago. How much they can get away with is entirely dependent on what kind of a military deterrent the opposition has, for the record. And the only reason why they were forced to stop with Iran was America, because America said no more. Trump literally said he made the planes turn around. They were trying to do a last-second bombing campaign again. And a big part of the reason why he made the planes turn around wasn't because, like, he really loves Iran or something. It's because Iranian missiles had unironically eroded the defenses of Israel. We found out after the fact, but the suspicion was there. Something I also speculated on was that Israel and America was actually running out of their munitions stock, and at a quite a faster pace than they initially suspected. They were also having a hard time intercepting certain missiles. This is precisely the real reason why they stopped. Netanyahu releases a statement in Hebrew. Let's take a look. Prime Minister Netanyahu, unofficial translation for Hebrew below. A great day for Israel. Tomorrow I will convene the government to approve the agreement and bring all of our beloved hostages home. I extend my gratitude to the brave IDF soldiers and all the security forces whose courage and sacrifice have brought us to this day. I offer my heartfelt thanks to President Trump and his team for their dedication to the sacred mission of freeing our hostages. With God's help, together we will continue to achieve all our goals and enhance peace with our neighbors. I don't get it. He could have done this at any point. This doesn't make sense. He could have released all the hostages at any point. Hamas literally on October 10th said that they would do a full release of hostages for the hostages that Israel has, and also if Israel doesn't enter the Gaza Strip. So October 10th, 2023, by the way. That's what I'm saying. Why now? I don't know. Maybe Trump made the secret boss call, or maybe either Trump made the secret boss call or Israel will violate this and they have a side deal, a side agreement where they will be allowed to violate this again.
And of course, Netanyahu, as you say, has wriggled out of all previous attempts to get a ceasefire.
Well, he has, and we know that this is something that could have been brought to an end so much earlier. We don't know if it is now being brought to an end. And one of the crucial questions is, what happens next? Because when a genocide has been committed, if that is then paused, one doesn't normally say, that's fantastic, business as usual, everyone treat the perpetrators of that genocide as if nothing had happened. So we have to insist that accountability should be on the agenda. Netanyahu has an ICC arrest warrant against his name. When it comes to any possibility of rebuilding in Gaza, one should ask the question,
Isn't this guy a former,
correct?
he's a former Israeli negotiator, right?
That destruction, cause that destruction.
Am I crazy? Is he not?
To be paying compensation for their assets to be gone after in order to be able to pay for that. Should it be obvious that Gulf states, for instance, are going to have to put their hands in their pocket? I don't think they were the ones doing that destruction in Gaza. And then the much bigger question, which is the inherent instability of a situation. The unlikelihood, although we want to be optimistic tonight, Darren, the unlikelihood that you will actually see stability as long as you have a situation of ongoing occupation and apartheid is the choice between genocide and apartheid. Palestinians won't have their self-determination. The Trump 20 points set up some colonial economic governance structure for Gaza, but they don't actually come to terms and come to grips with this occupation and apartheid, with Palestinian self-determination. And as long as that is not addressed, then you will have the obliteration of Gaza, and you will still have a reality of Palestinians denied their basic rights, which can never be a recipe for security.
So it
your
is
point about managing
relatively
the
easy
PR?
than the bigger 20-point plan. And yes, the fact that it happened in such a short time.
2 years since Hamas attack on October 7th, former Israeli negotiator Daniel Levy says there has been an irreversible shift in public perception of Israel. On Trump's peace plan, he told Anna Koch, it feels like a proposition to impose a colonial structure on Palestinians. So maybe the only outside pressure here is for Trump to manage the public relations of Israel, to manage the public relations of Israel's genocide. It's not here to stop Israel's genocide. For that to be the goal, obviously Donald Trump would have to care about Palestinians. Donald Trump does not care about Palestinians. Donald Trump doesn't care about anybody. Donald Trump only cares about himself and Israel too, but, because it has a close personal financial benefit to himself. He's transactional, he's narcissistic, and therefore, the only thing I can see here is that he is trying to at least manage the PR of this genocide by being like, oh, we're done, no more war. And then they just basically legalize the permanent occupation and continue to slowly but surely engage in ethnic cleansing. Benjamin Netanyahu's obvious goals here are the Rafah plan. The Rafah plan is the one where they take all the Palestinians into a concentration camp in Rafah and then ethnically cleanse them from the land completely. There is a way to potentially take the Rafah plan and merge it with the Tony Blair Gaza Riviera plan. Prime Minister's office, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just spoke with U.S. President Donald Trump. The two had a very moving and warm conversation and congratulated each other on the historic achievement in signing the agreement to release all the hostages. Bro, I don't understand. This is such a Trumpian thing. And I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu is doing the same thing that Trump does, in the sense that Trump does this thing all the time where he just breaks something permanently. He bricks something permanently, only to then turn around and be like, well, see, I'm not breaking it any further. Don't you think you should credit me for your salvation? And it's like, well, you broke it, right? And Netanyahu is doing the exact same thing here. And I don't understand how people don't see it. It's like they're congratulating one another for the brave initiative that they took to end their genocide. These are the two belligerent occupiers that have been conducting a genocide of the Palestinians. So they're like, finally, guys, we did it. Aren't we great? They're just, popping champagne and shit. And it's like, okay, you could have done this at any point. I can't help but feel like a part of this hinges on the Nobel Peace Prize Committee announcement. I'm not even kidding. I think it's delusional. I think the notion that they deserve a peace prize for this is so fucking insane. And I think that would be a major you to everyone with a brain, everyone with eyes, everyone with ears. It would be such a you if they were like, Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump, sir, here is a peace prize for you. Here's a Nobel Peace Prize for you for all your continued work in ending the genocide, which you began and started and continued to do.